All right, this is 13.2. We also have done this already. So again, this is more review. You will see a little Danger Yamasaki reappear today. So, all right, so this time we're learning to solve using the square root method. So what do I need to do to solve this?
Don't be rude.
Don't be rude, just root it. Root both sides of the equation. And what is the square root of x squared?
X.
No.
Value of x.
Right. Which, every time you do it, I want to see this, is the reason that anybody is making a mistake and only gets one solution is because they're not writing the step with the absolute value. So really remembering that every time you take the square root of a quadratic, whether it's a binomial or monomial, we are taking the absolute value of x. Okay? And to lose the absolute value, what are we doing? X equals plus or minus 3. Perfect. Questions? All right. So I've got 2. And you will notice there are 2 solutions. The big mistake on the last test was 2 tests ago that people made is they just said x equals 3. Remember, the absolute value of x is equal to plus or minus 3. Questions? All right. So now let's go. Number 1 and 2, I want you to pause the recording, and I want you to do exactly those steps with x squared equals 36 and n squared equals 169. Okay, check your work. Okay, next one. Anthony, what am I doing? You're going to root y squared? Root both sides of the equation. And then we get? Absolute value of y equals, leave it in radical form. Leave it in radical form. Don't try and estimate this unless it's a word problem. And so then I get y equals plus or minus 7, rad 7. All right, so now you guys try number 4. Go. Okay, checking our work. And we get m is equal to plus or minus rad 13. All right, now what do you think we are doing? Please writing this down as we go. Do you guys want to do these 2 on your own right now? Yeah. Okay, pause it. And you do the next. Just a reminder, we are using the square root property. So get the x alone, then root it. We're not factoring these. All right. Okay, so now we're checking our work. And number 6 would be plus or minus rad 10. Can rad 10 be simplified, Lauren?
No.
Okay, let's get present. All right, next one. Go. 2 more. Pause it. And finish the next. If you got these wrong, you should be taking notes as we're going and have samples in your notebook. So what would I do first, Jack? Number 1. Subtracting 30 from both sides. And next step, divide by 2. Mark, what did you do wrong?
No, I first divided by 2.
Which would have been okay, but what did you do wrong with that? When you divided, check your division there.
Oh, I see.
Do you see? Because that would have been okay too. Okay, now I'm left with Jack. -7. Now what? Jackson.
You have to root it.
Okay, we root both sides, and what's the solution?
The absolute value of y equals radical -7.
Jacob? Why? You cannot take a square root of a negative. So at this point, the second I'm putting that radical on the negative number, we say no solution, no real number solution. Now, number 8, what do I do first? Robert? Add 2 to both sides. And we're here. Next step. Divide both sides by 5. Next step. Root both sides. And we get? How about the square root of 3 over the square root of 5? Am I allowed to stay like that? Why?
Oh, because there's a rad in the denominator.
There's a rad in the denominator. We've got to get rid of it. So I'm going to be multiplying by rad 5 over rad 5. So that will make it, what will it make it? Rad 15 over 5. Okay. So then I'm going to go to the absolute value of x equals rad 15 over 5. And then I can say x is equal to plus or minus rad 15 over 5. Questions there? Does everybody remember that we can't have a radical left in the denominator? Okay. All right, now, binomials. A ton of people got these wrong. I have a binomial, but it's a quadratic. So what do I do when the quadratic's alone? Anybody? Anybody? Don't all volunteer at once. Jacob in the back.
You read it. Oh.
We root both sides.
And then you get y plus 1 equals negative 4 and 4.
No. The absolute value of y plus 1.
Equals 4. So
Okay.
y plus 1 equals 4 and negative 4.
Y plus 1 equals plus or minus 4.
And you get y equals 3 and negative 5. What?
You're missing a step. Subtract 1 from both sides. Now, here's how we write it. We always write it with the plus or minus as the second term. I know by rights it would be correct, but just get in the habit of doing that because it's going to help for later. It's not wrong, but it will help for later. So I'm asking you to put the plus or minus second as the second term. So negative 1 plus 4 is 3, and negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. Questions? Okay. Pause the recording and do number 10. Go. All right. So we're going to root both sides. X minus 3 equals plus or minus 5. Add 3 to both sides. 3 plus 5, 3 minus 5. So we've got negative 2 and 8. Okay, questions on those? All right. So the next problem, Danger Yamasaki's coming soon. Okay, don't worry, I'll start throwing the scissors soon enough to Liam. Okay. Like a football. All right, so right now we've got a penny or something. We're dropping from a high place. Boom. That is this situation, the height of a falling object. Okay? Generally with these kinds of problems, they give you the equation. The equation could change depending on if they're using meters or inches, feet, but they give you the equation. So all you really need to know are what are the different parts of it. Yes?
Are you still recording?
Yeah. So all you really need to know are the different parts, but thank you for reminding me. So let's talk about C or H. I like to say this is your ending height. H is your ending height. Height of an object in space on the ground. It could be in meters in the space. It could be on the ground. It's your ending height. C is my initial height. And T stands for what? Time. And in this case, since it's meters per second, it's time in seconds. Okay? So does everybody have that equation written down? H equals negative 5t squared plus C. Okay? Can I move on? Okay. So, if a penny is dropped from the top of the Empire State Building, which is 448 meters tall, how long will it take to hit the ground? So, I'm generally given my equation. Now, the first thing you need to do is identify what's what in this word problem. So, in this word problem, what pieces of information do they give me? Shayna?
The building is 448 meters tall.
So, but the 448, is that the H, the T, or the C?
H.
That is the H. What did we say H stands for? Ending height. Is that the ending height? Hold on, let's go back. I said to you, when we are doing this, height of the object in space on the ground, and I said to you, I like to call this the ending height. Okay, the ending height. Okay, do you understand what the word initial means? The word initial means starting. Your initial response, your starting response, your initial reaction, the first reaction. So this is your starting point. This is your ending. Does that make sense? Okay. So now, go on to the word problem. What is that? What are they giving me? 448 is my C. Good. So 448 is my, that is my C. What else are they giving me?
The ending height is 0 because
the ending height is 0, so H equals 0. The ground is 0 inches high or meters high. Does that make sense? And what do they want me to find? How long, which is time. That's my time. So I'm substituting these in. 0 for H, 448 for C, and what can we do? We can do one of two things. Well, we're in the square root chapter, so let's just solve it using the square root property. Let's go, Jack.
Subtract 448 from both sides.
Good. And then?
Divide and
Good. And now we're left with t squared is equal to almost 90. So if I'm going to estimate that, because now I really want a real concrete number, right? I'm dropping the penny. I want to know how long it's going to take to hit the ground. I don't want the square root of a number to be my time. I want a real number. So remember, that's pretty close to 90, right? And the square root of 90, we've got my perfect squares are 81 and 100. It's how many digits away? 9 digits. And here it's 10. It's almost what? That's 9, that's 10. What would it be? 9.4, 9.5, 9.45. It's super close. So if you estimate it, well, I guess they've done it on the calculator, and they rounded it to 9.5. Does that make sense? So the time, what does that mean? 9.5 seconds. Sorry, I answered my own question. Okay, questions. Okay, vertical motion. Now, vertical motion is when you're actually, there it is.
No.
Ready? Here it is. I'm giving it a shove up. Boom.
Danger.
That was Danger Yamasaki throwing the scissors. Making the parabola. So part Same thing if you're throwing a football, you're adding velocity to it, okay? There's a push to it, so we're making that speed. I know that you can only imagine on the videotape. So, vertical motion is that. So, object dropped. Remember, our H stood for our ending location, our ending height. T is for time, C is for the initial height. The difference between an object thrown up and making that parabola that a ball makes would be velocity that we're adding. Okay? So I'm adding the velocity. Questions. Velocity is like your speed. Okay? It's like your rate. Okay? Can I move on? Should I pause it? All right, so pause the recording if you need to take notes. All right, how long will the ball be thrown upwards at 10 meters per second? Stay in the air if it's thrown from a 40-meter clip. So now, they're drawing the picture in your head. How long will it stay in the air if a ball is thrown 10 meters per second? How long is it in the air? So is it starting from the ground? No, I'm throwing it. What shape is it making?
A U.
An upside down U or a V, kind of. Well, no, you're right. More of like a U. And the 40, it's starting. Okay, let's see. Let's start with our equation. What is my H going to be? Who can tell me what the H is going to be? Jackson.
Would it be 40?
Yep, that's the starting point. And what will my no.
Wouldn't that be C?
That would be, sorry, C. That's my initial height.
Okay.
So what is my H going to be?
Would it be 10 meters?
What was the equation? It's H equals,
-5t squared plus C.
No, but that was.
no, oh yeah, sorry, this one is velocity
Okay.
plus C. Sorry, I didn't give you the equation. I should have done that. I wanted to do this first before to let you guys figure it out. Okay, so let's look at that. So we said it's H equals, what did we say? It was -5 t squared plus the velocity times time plus C. Okay, so we said our initial height is what?
40.
40, and 40 is stands for what variable? C. Good. Okay, what is my H going to be? Yes. 0. H is 0 because how long will it be in the ground? I'm throwing the ball. Okay, let's do something a little less dangerous. I'm throwing the ball. H is the ending height. Where does it end?
0.
Okay, sorry.
0.
That was my lunch Tupperware recording, by the way, in case you're dying to know what she's throwing in class. So that's why it's the 0. And then, what else am I missing here?
The velocity.
The velocity. And so what is the velocity?
10.
10. And so we're substituting. Okay. Okay, what might we do to solve this first? I think this is going to be easier than square root property to just simplify it down and solve it as a through zero product property. What can we divide out right away? 5. And then I'm left with t. How about -5? T squared minus 2t minus 8. Right? And then what multiplies to -8 and adds to -2?
2.
-4 and 2. So I get x plus 2. T plus 2. Thank you. T plus 2 times t minus 4 equals 0. And so t is equal to 2 and t is equal to -2. So what is are both of them correct?
No.
What is the best answer here? 4. For what? 4 seconds. Okay? 4 seconds because time can't be negative. Questions? Okay. Now, one of the questions somebody asked earlier, am I ever going to have 2 correct answers here? You could have 2 correct answers. Like, for instance, if this is 10 feet where my arm is, let's say I'm shooting something up. And I said, at how long will it take to reach 10 feet? So if it's starting here and it comes up, let's count it out. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. One more time. Just count it from start to finish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So do you see how it hits 10 feet at twice when it's coming up and when it's going down? So in that kind of situation of word problem, you will have 2 solid answers. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so let's try the next one. You guys are doing this one on your own. Pause the recording and try it yourself. Here's the original equation. Pause the recording. Okay, so do you have the equation written down? Because Liam's going to walk me through this. So, what is my starting height? Huh? 8. What variable do we use for starting height? C. Good. What does the 6 get substituted in for? Velocity. Good. And what else do I have that's implied? 0 for the ending height, right? Okay. So now I'm just substituting in. What equation did you get?
0 equals negative 5t squared plus 6t plus 8.
Good. Okay, so now, first of all, are they really? Okay, I think this is lead coefficient factoring. So let's go back, and this is a good time to review. Let's try it. We may as well try it. Negative 5 times 8 is what?
Negative 4 and 8.
And 6. Is there anything?
Yeah. 10 and negative
10 and negative 4. So I'm using the first term. I'm using the last one. And I'm going to use negative 4. No, let's do negative 10t. Negative 10t and negative 4t. Positive 10, sorry. Okay, now I'm going to factor by grouping. What do I do, Liam?
Take out the negative 5t.
Negative 5t, and I'm left with?
T plus 2.
Good. And then I'm going to factor out a?
T minus 2.
T minus 2, yes. You're right. And then what else am I factoring out?
Negative 4.
And I'm left with?
T minus 2.
And so when I set it all equal to 0, it's, what is it? T minus 2 times what's left.
Negative 5t minus 4.
And now I use the zero product property. T minus 2 equals 0. Add 2. T equals 2. Or negative 5t minus 4 equals 0. Add 4. Negative 5t equals 4. And t, this one is t equals negative 4/5. What's the answer, Liam? 2 what? It takes 2 seconds that it's staying in the air, the ball. Okay, just a reminder, if you have those lead coefficient factoring, keep practicing it once in a while. Because it's coming back. It's not going away. You're going to need that skill. Okay? And by the way, most people are like struggling at this point. All right, so let's see. Now, I think the last problem we're going to do is interest. All right, so let me talk to you about interest really quick. When we have interest, okay, in the past we've done simple interest and we've done compound. We accumulate interest when I either borrow money or invest money. Now, most of the time, the compound interest really kicks in with debt. Of course, it's very rare that an investment is compound interest. Now, the difference is, so let's say your interest, remember this, interest equals principal times rate times time, right? So let's say I have $100 in year one. In year one, I have $100, right? And if they're giving me 10% interest, I'm going to multiply by 0.1. And how much do I earn? $10, right? But plus that altogether, I'm going to have 110. Are you guys with me? Plus the $100. Year two. I take that same $100. I'm doing the same thing. And what's the interest I make that year? I make 10%, $10. But altogether, I'm adding it to the 110, so I make 120. Year three. You guys with me? I make another $10, but this time I'm adding it to the 120. That gives me 130. Are you guys with me? Now here's how compound interest works. Year one, I'm taking that $100 and it's the same, and I end up with $10 plus that 100. I have 110, right? You guys with me? But in year two, my principal, the amount I start with, that my interest is being earned on or charged, is this time I use 110. And I'm still being charged 10% interest. Does that make sense? 10% of 110 is what? $11 plus the 110. That makes 121. Okay? Year two. Year three. This time, what's my interest what's my principal going to be? 121, and I'm doing 10%. Oops, 0.1. I end up with, it's 1210 plus that 121. What does that make? 121 and 12. It's 133.10. Which one is growing faster? Okay, so rarely are you making compound interest when you invest. But all the time, when you have credit cards and go into debt, okay, all your principal goes in and your interest is now charged every month on that interest, on that new bill. Does that make sense? So this adds up much faster. For owing money, not good. Okay, there is an equation that's used for the compound interest. Most of the time you need to use the equation. There'll be big numbers. And that is A stands for the amount in the account. P stands for, you should be writing this. P stands for what? Principal. Principal. The amount of money you start with. R stands for what? Your rate. And what do you think T stands for? Anybody? Time in years. They say annually, like, you know, they use the word annually a lot. So, you ready to try one of these? It's really, again, it's just using the formula. They're giving you the formula. You just have to plug the substitute the numbers in. Don't plug. We don't plug in math. All right. If $500 is invested for 2 years and the interest rate is compounded annually, what interest rate is needed to increase the total in the account to 540? So let's start with our equation. What are they giving me? Where does 500 go? What does A stand for?
The amount. Would the amount in the account? Would the amount in the account be 540? Or would it be?
Well, what does P stand for? Go back.
Principal or okay.
So
that equals 500.
So my P is 500. Okay. Where does the 2 go? Jackson?
The 2 goes to
2 years.
the time.
T is the exponent. Okay, now I've got, and the interest is compounded annually. What interest rate is needed? What am I looking for? R, to increase the total in the account to 540. Where does 540 go? A. Okay? Now, how do I solve? Remember, it's just a binomial. Get the binomial alone. Let's use the square root property. What do I need to do to get the binomial alone? Dylan?
Divide by 500.
Perfect. I'll do your dividing. Now, first I can simplify this to 54 over 50, right? Then I can simplify that. They're both even, so 2 goes into that, and 2 goes into that 25 times and 27 times. Okay? Now what? I've got the quadratic alone. What do I need to do? Keep going, Dylan.
Square root both sides.
Good. Okay.
And it's square root of 27 over 25 is equal to absolute value of r plus 1.
Good. And we know the square root of 25 is what?
5.
5. Good. You know that that's 5. And we can actually make this a reduced radical. You can do one of two things. Take your calculator, hit the square root button, right? Hit the square root button and then put 27, or you can reduce it to, it's 9 times 3, so that'd be 3 rad 3. Right? So I'm doing plus 3 rad 3. Now, I've really got 1 plus or minus 3 rad 3 over 5. Okay? Oh, sorry, negative 1. Okay? Negative 1 plus or minus 3 rad 3. Now, you can, again, just do the math in your calculator. So, but if you, do you guys know the square root of 3? It's like 1.7 something. Have you got that memorized yet? You've seen it enough times? Square root of 2, the square root of 3. Okay. Well, it's like, okay, if you don't, then we're plugging it into, we're putting it into the calculator. You can just do 3 times the square root of 3. And I got 5.196. Bunch of numbers. I don't even cut it off. Then divide it by 5. And I'm turning that into one number. Do you understand? I'm doing all this math right here. I'm doing this math right here, simplifying it to one number. 3 times this is 196, blah, blah, blah. There's a bunch of numbers. Then I'm dividing it by 5, and that becomes 1.04, about. So this is negative 1 plus or minus. Okay? And we've got negative 1 plus 1 400ths and negative 1 minus 1 400ths. And what do I end up with? What's the best answer? The first one, what's the answer? 0.04. And the second one? Negative 2.04. What's the best answer? The first one. What does that mean? Because what is it saying? What interest rate is needed to increase the total in
4
the...
cents.
4%. 4%. So make sure you're answering the question. 4%. Are you guys good with that?
Yeah.
It's not as complicated as it seems. It's just being able to work with. All right, 4% interest. And that was the last of our